and tell them don't mess with it, and that's mine. Don't mess with it. Okay, you can tell them that. I ain't saying. The point I want to make is I believe as a rule it should be 50-50. But like I said, if someone is happy to do the majority of things, then go for it. More power. But one thing I will say is I don't think that the guys that out there that think okay. One, housework is women's work. That's a definite big deal, but okay. Or two, basically she is not doing much because housework is not a lot of work. So why is she complaining? Oh, yeah. He may need to get taught a little lesson because Link 9, Keros, was a very funny, amusing article that I found. Now, here's an example of what could go wrong if you're not careful, gentlemen out there. Because if you think that housework is not hard work, you could be in for a surprise and you could be made to look like an idiot. It's the story of the man who wanted to do housework. And this is apparently this was from a children's book from 1935. So I was like, okay. As you guys know, I like to do my research, and I just thought that was highly amusing.
Well, a children's book from 1935, you can just imagine the role a man thought. Was it written by a man or a woman, do you know?
I don't even know. Let me see. I don't know. Because it was they said it was from a children's book, but I didn't even actually catch who the author was. Let me see. Because sometimes you wonder, you think, oh my God. But I assume it might have been written by a woman trying to make a guy sort of, see the error of his ways. Basically. But it's funny, he had housework to do, he had to look after the children, and it all started going horribly wrong because women are just the natural multitaskers. Is that not correct?
Well, but see though, that's also I just think there are things are different now. Let me put it that way. I think that is that's truer. Let me put it that way. I think because it's a developed skill. Let me also say it that way, because if you start teaching a child when it comes to multitasking when they're young, how to do it, don't you think that if you teach both the little boy and the little girl multitasking, do you feel that they both will learn to multitask, or do you feel that the little girl will learn multitasking better?
Okay.
That's the question.
No. Okay, let's do it. Okay. If you are, okay, it's funny, but it just depends on how much practice they have. If they're both learning, because remember, some people pick things up quicker than others anyway. It doesn't matter which sex they are, if you see what I mean.
Right.
But I'm just going to have to say, I'm sorry, the women will come out on top usually, because we just do, innit? It's just inbuilt in us, innit?
Okay, so that to me, and I don't think it's bad. I'm not saying it's bad.
I ain't saying he can't do it. I'm not saying that a guy can't multitask. He may just be a little slower.
Well,
I just put it out there, people. Okay, if you do not agree with this, let me know at Ask Avani Show.
but as we look at it, that's part of the entire basis for this show. I believe, both genders, and I'm going through this so carefully right now. As both genders have assumptions about what they feel they are better at and what they feel the other gender should be doing. And but you're brought up thinking that based on your surroundings, based on those other people in your gender and the other gender, and how you react and how they react. So if you take a little boy and a little girl and you teach them multitasking from the very beginning of their lives, basically not teaching, not anything that has to do with their gender, just straight, we're going to teach you both the same things at the same time on how to do cleaning. Right. You still feel that women will be better. That little girl is going to grow up and be better at it than the little boy.
If you put it like that, then I'll be fair and I'll say no. They'll probably even out.
Okay, so as we move forward, I wanted everybody to hear that last little part of what she said. Listen, she said, So that, so remember that, okay? She said, oh yeah, it'll even out. So okay, so now that's been put on tape as we move forward.
Now you wanted to know who wrote this story. It was a woman, apparently. This woman that wrote the story for Matt. Yes, it was. It was. I don't think she was. People didn't really. They were probably surprised to see somebody writing about swapping roles for the day, basically. So the man. And she even put here naively, he agrees, because he was used to going out in the fields and working and toiling, as they say. And the wife used to stay home and look after the humble house and the children, because obviously children are working themselves. People seem to forget that. The kids ain't just the package with the house. Listen, they're a job all on their own. Each child is a job. But people don't realise that until they have to do it. They're like, oh my God. People, just please read the article and let me know what you think, because I saw that and I just thought it was really funny. Because it just goes to show that even in this day and age, those stereotypes are still, running amok, as we say. And however long ago, how many years ago that was, decades ago, you just think, oh my God, there are people who still think that in the traditional, as you say, way is for a man to go out to work, and if you have that type of household, for the woman to stay home. And I don't see that. And in these days, if a guy stays home and becomes a house husband, he generally tends to get ridiculed for that, which I don't think is fair, because if that's what works for your family, I mean, hey, you got to do what works for you, as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, I think so.
Yeah, and the roles are different. Really, not even the roles, but just the way people work. It's different now, because back when I was growing up, my father, he would go to a physical 9 to 5, and my mother went to a 9 to 5. So they both did that. I went to school, but they both worked. Yeah. But now, as you mentioned quite frequently, there are people who are able to work from home if they can. And that's something you're trying to encourage, which I understand. And it's something that happens here in the States. So
we don't have it so much over here, okay, Rose?
Exactly.
I mean, there's more and more people who are doing it, but it's very hard to find that, like, say, for example, if your job is a 9 to 5, I personally think, especially nowadays, okay, Rose, if you get me off on this subject of the travel, we will be here for the rest of the millennium.
We're not doing that. We're telling people.
I just want to say
a different look.
That I think, I'm just going to say this and then I'm sorry. I think that certain 9 to 5 jobs, in fact, quite a lot of them, because they're admin based, if it's an admin based one, like paper and, just pen and computer and whatever, I think that a lot of them could be done from home. Because, hello, when the trains are messing about, and it's ridiculous, why not just work from home rather than losing a day's pay because you can't get into the office because the trains are faffing about yet again?
Right. And so I agree with that. And so if let's say, right, do you know about a show that was called Leave It to Beaver and then the States?
I heard
Leave It to Beaver had, the Beav and his brother, Wally Cleaver. All these beavers and cleavers and all this other stuff. But they had Mr. Cleaver, who went to work, and Mrs. Cleaver, she was at home impeccably dressed every day in a skirt and a dress, and she did all the home duties, et cetera, and she was always in makeup and always had a apron with a dress on under it, all this other crazy stuff that I thought was insane. But anyway, what if she worked from home?
There you go.
If she worked from home, she would still be at home. Or if Mr. Cleaver worked from home, he would still be at home. So the roles now that children will see, they're different. Hey, dad is sitting there in his office. He's working. He's running a radio station. But they don't see work as the same way that I saw work when I was with my mother and father.
Which meant you had to leave the house for it to go to your work. There was no other way. You had to leave the house to go and do your work. And that's why it was considered such a big thing, because you were away from the house for so many hours of the day. So it meant that obviously you can't be in two places at once. So when you were at work, you couldn't be at home doing that. And that suffered, as it were. The housework would suffer unless you had the partner, whoever that may be, that was prepared to stay home and could do the work to keep the house clean, so that whoever came home was able to say, well, I've done a hard day's work, is there any food?
Right.
And you're thinking, okay, well, I've done a hard day's work cleaning the house, but that wasn't recognised as a hard day's work, though, was it?
Right, and that's the part that's completely unfair, because I do help around the house, and there is a physical aspect to whether you're washing clothes or you're cleaning a carpet or you are cleaning dishes or you are dusting or you're hoovering or vacuuming, as we say here in the States, there's a physical aspect to that. I can't do it by just willing it to happen from my desk and just thinking, okay, the dishes are being washed. You can't. You have to physically get up and do that. And so it is strenuous to do that, and it is stressful if you add in the toddler component or the child component.
Or plural, children.
Yeah, I'm not even saying plural. I'm just saying one. So there is a difference to that. And then I'll even throw in this in the mix. There is a physiological difference with women when they do have children. They go through a change in their physical being, and they go through a change in hormones, and all these things don't connect to men because we don't go through any of that. We don't have to go through the pain of it. All those things we don't go through, and then the changes are added into the stresses that make you tired when you are a woman. And so all that was pushed aside by those people that we need to load on the ship. Because they said, well, we work so hard. When we come home, we should have this, this, and this, and hand me a beer. And, well, this person who has given you life, basically, and you have a son or a daughter, they're going through all this. And if that Mr. Cleaver, I never saw Mr. Cleaver wash dishes or cook or do anything. None of that. And so he should have.
Mr. Cleaver may not have done them, but didn't we see Cliff Huxtable do some housework?
Right. Well, Mr. Huxtable, and like I said, I separate him from the man. Okay. So Mr. Huxtable, he was cool. He did some of those things, and he cooked, and he, the kids did their chores. So
as it over, they started to sort of mirror more real life in the sitcoms and such.
Right. They did.
Because I know this is what people see. And a lot of people believed, obviously, when you were growing up, you may have sort of attributed what you saw to that was how it is.
Right.
Obviously, a lot of people didn't think, okay, I'm just going to say it, a lot of people didn't think that black people were successful and could have jobs like doctors and lawyers and whatever. Okay, we know that part of it is, obviously, they just don't get it. Yes, there are middle-class black people. There are very, very rich black people. Hello, I'm not even going to go down that road. But bringing it back to housework.
But they never had a maid. Did you notice that?
Yeah.
The Huxtables never had anyone doing any of the housework.
And they made their kids do chores.
Thank you.
See, people? See now, people? We know what you're loving what we're doing out there at Ask Avani Show. Let us know what you think about what we're talking about today. Basically, it boils down to #housework. I ain't even going to say no more because that is just going to open up the whole spectrum of the views. Like I said, I had the poll. I'm going to have another poll on another show. Oh, yes. And that one's going to be even more, I don't want to say inflammatory. But anyway, going back to today's show topic. Now, K-Rose, Link 12. I'm sorry. When I saw this video, I had to put it in. Now, over here in the UK, everyone's going to remember that we have the Wife Swap UK. I know you guys had Wife Swap in America. We probably stole it from you. Because we steal everything else, right? So basically, but I had to share this, K-Rose. It is hilarious. When I was doing my research and putting my show together, oh my God, people. Oh my God. This particular episode was hilarious, and it covered everything from housework, working parents, the childcare issues, how different people view each other, especially when it comes down to race and gender. I mean, people, you just got to watch it, because when I was sitting there watching this, oh my God, I remembered it. I was killing myself laughing. I was thinking, oh my God, because there's some hilarious moments, and you know when you see these types of things, K-Rose, and certain couples just stand out, and you think these people should have their own show because they're just so funny. You just think, oh my God. There was a particular husband and wife. She does the wife swap and she goes to someone else's house. Obviously, that's what it's all about, isn't it? They change over roles and stuff. And this lady, she realised just how much her husband had been taking her for granted, and basically her life wasn't her own, because her husband was of the mindset that she should do everything for him. She should cook and she should clean and she should look after him, and he expected it. I mean, it got to the point where he would be like, get me a beer, blah 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 blah. It was just like, and I think she seemed quite a strong-minded woman, so I was kind of surprised